Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the Johns Hopkins School of Education virtual information session. Today's session will feature our interdisciplinary education master's programs as well as our urban teachers master's program. My name is Liz Woodward and I serve as the Director of Admissions here at the School of Education. And I'm joined this afternoon by my colleague in admissions, Tyreen Maddox, who works closely with our educational studies and urban teachers program applicants throughout the process. We're also joined this afternoon by our faculty presenter, Dr. Eric Rice, who you will hear from shortly. Before we get started, I would just like to cover a few logistical items for today's presentation. First, today's webinar is being recorded. The admissions office will make the recorded presentation on our website available should you wish to review it again, or maybe even to share it with a friend or colleague who may also be interested in our educational studies master's programs or urban teachers master's program. We ask that you make sure that your microphone is on mute while our presenters are speaking and your video camera is off during the presentation. We will ask that you keep your microphone silenced until the end of the presentation. And at the end, we invite you to ask questions of our presenter and to me and to Tyreen using the chat function. And we'll attempt to answer those questions. To start us off, here's a view of our agenda. We'll start the presentation by sharing a brief overview of Johns Hopkins and School of Education. I will then hand over the next portion of the presentation to Dr. Rice and return a little bit later to talk about important next steps in the application process, which including tuition, financial aid, scholarships. And last but not least, we will conclude with that question and answer period. Okay, but first off, we'll talk a little bit about Johns Hopkins. So Johns Hopkins enrolls more than 24,000 full-time and part-time students across 9 academic divisions on 4 campuses, including our Homewood campus in Baltimore, DC, and facilities throughout the Baltimore-Washington region, as well as internationally in China and Italy. Established in 2007, the Johns Hopkins School of Education is the youngest of the 9 divisions and has quickly taken its place as a national leader in education reform through research and teaching. Grounded in the Johns Hopkins tradition of evidence-based practice and innovation, the School of Education consistently ranks among the top graduate schools of education in the nation by U.S. News and World Report and is currently number 12 in the Times World International rankings. You'll also see here that we do have collaborative partnerships, master's degrees with Urban Teachers Program and Teach for America. So today, the school has over 127 full-time faculty, 2,437 enrolled students across 28 programs and 3 academic departments, as well as a growing number of fully online programs. The school currently offers our traditional campus-based courses at our education building located in Baltimore. The purpose of today's event is to help you not only to learn more about our master's programs in these areas in educational studies and urban teachers, but it's also an opportunity to hear firsthand from our faculty about the curriculum, the learning experience, outcomes, as well as current research and trends in the field. This event is a chance for you to engage, to ask questions, and hopefully to move you closer to deciding if this is a right opportunity for graduate school and your professional development goals. We hope you find this useful and look forward to receiving or reading a completed application. Just to alert you to this, that we are still accepting applications for our upcoming spring 2021 semester, which starts on January 25th. And for our Urban Teachers Program, we are accepting applications for summer. And we are currently also open for fall 2021. I will be back in a little while with some more information on the application and the admissions process. But I would now like to introduce Dr. Eric Rice. Dr. Rice is an assistant clinical professor at Johns Hopkins School of Education, where he teaches and does research about urban school reform, the social context of education, and educational inequities. He coordinates the Masters of Science Educational Studies program, serves as a program lead for advanced educator programs, and program liaison for the Urban Teachers Program Partnership Program. In addition to all of that, he's currently serving as an interim chair for the school's Counseling and Educational Studies Department. Dr. Rice earned his PhD at Johns Hopkins in anthropology. His research interests include school funding, teacher leadership, charter schools, and urban school reform. And as you can see from his current projects, in addition to his work in Uganda, he's also working on an analysis of the discourse around school funding in Baltimore, the creation and improvement of teacher professional development modules to help teachers better motivate students, and an evaluation of school-university partnership focused on engaging families in the transition from high school. So without further ado, I introduce Dr. Eric Rice.
Thank you. So I am here today to talk about a number of program options. Most of them actually fall under our Masters of Science in Education. Then I'll also talk specifically about one of our graduate certificates. But I'm going to start by talking about two of the options that are part of the Masters of Science in Education under the concentration in educational studies. And these are the individualized interdisciplinary option and the independent schools option. So in the independent schools option is a 33 credit program, and it's designed for either early career teachers in independent schools or people who would like to become career teachers in independent schools. It is based on, it focuses on giving you the skills and dispositions that you would need to succeed in an independent school. For if you are from the Baltimore area, you know that there's a great deal of variation in the approaches taken by independent schools in the Baltimore area. That's probably true in many cities. So it is a fairly flexible program. Focuses on giving you knowledge that you can apply practically in a foundational pedagogy. And the faculty in teaching in the program have experience supervising independent schools teacher candidates. And it's designed for educators with a wide range of experiences and with a wide range of interests. As you'll see, there are a number, it's aligned to the INTAS standards, if you're, which is the Interstate Compact looking at teacher preparation, but also to the Association of Independent Maryland and DC Schools sets of standards. And and one more thing about the independent schools program, actually, before I jump into the individualized interdisciplinary, it is, because there are so many different approaches taken in independent schools, it does provide a great deal of flexibility in terms of having 15 credits of electives in the program so that you can, students most often choose to use those on additional methods courses and such, but it is an opportunity to, for example, if you know you're going to be teaching in an urban area, to take some courses in urban education, or to take courses that might be focused on different styles of pedagogy, which is a way that you can customize the program for whatever sort of school you are interested in teaching in. So turning now to the individualized interdisciplinary studies, it is I would say, our most flexible program option. It allows students to customize a course of study, and depending on which approach you take, it can be anywhere from 33 to 39 credits. The one caveat that I always want to make sure people understand is that although we base the program on our graduate certificate programs, that is different than initial teacher certification. And so, while you would receive one or two of our graduate certificates, depending on the pathway you choose, it is not a program that is designed for students who are interested in getting certified to teach in K-12 public schools. But there are two pathways in the degree, one of which allows you to choose one of our graduate certificate programs as your area of focus, and that includes 9 credits of core courses and 6 to 9 credits of electives to get up to that minimum of 33 credits. And then there's a second pathway that allows you to combine 2 of our graduate certificates, so essentially have 2 focus areas with the capstone project that's a course called the Seminar in Teacher Leadership. And in the interdisciplinary option, students choose from our graduate certificate programs. And what we tried to do here was just to try to lay out some of the different graduate certificates that we offer. There's a series of certificates here offered on the left, which are for students that are interested in education-related fields, but these are certificates that don't have any impact necessarily on certification status. And I'll say a little bit more about what I mean by that when I get to the other column. But we have graduate certificates in autism studies. Again, this could be quite useful for a teacher who's teaching in the classroom, but doesn't lead to, say, like a special ed certification. We have a graduate certificate in urban education, which I'll speak in a little more detail about towards the end of the presentation. certificate in educational leadership for independent schools. And that is for independent school people interested in leadership in those schools, as opposed to the independent schools masters that I described a moment ago. Graduate certificate in mind, brain, and teaching, which focuses on the implications of recent research in neurobiology for what we understand about teaching. And then a graduate certificate in leadership and technology integration. On the right, I did say earlier that the degree does not lead to any kind of certification, but on the right, we've listed our graduate certificates that can lead to either to state endorsements on a teaching license if you have one. So the graduate certificate in gifted education, for example, Maryland does have a gifted ed endorsement that you can add to your certification. Similarly, we have graduate certificates in math and STEM instructional leadership. So that's actually 2 certificates, math or STEM, which can also lead to a certification endorsement. And finally, the graduate certificate in school administration and supervision can lead to your Admin 1 certification endorsement in Maryland. So while the degree itself does not have implications for teacher certification, it is possible to use the certificates within the degree, some of which do have implications for teacher certification. Each of the graduate certificates that you can construct this use to construct this master's has its own advisor. And so I advise the graduate certificate in urban education. It is an 18 credit certificate that is designed to assist early career certified teachers and other educational professionals really in just understanding the entire social context, and valuing and contributing to the rich, variety of schools and communities in urban and urbanized settings. So we included urbanizing here just to get at the idea that this certificate is relevant for anyone who might be working with not only in large urban districts, for example, but for urbanizing areas around large cities. So, I'm from Washington, D.C. We've had plenty of people from the DC public schools take this graduate certificate, but it's also useful for folks who might be working in, say, PG County or even parts of Montgomery County that have some of the same issues, just thinking about issues of diversity, about cultural responsiveness that would be faced more traditionally in urban school districts. And it's really meant to prepare educational professionals in a variety of careers. So that might be teachers, that might be principals, but it could also be folks who are working in not-for-profit organizations that work with urban kids to be better prepared to work with the students that they're working with. So it focuses on a deep understanding of urban residents. There is coursework around creating school, family, community partnerships, and core coursework around leadership skills necessary for leading change. And then you can also choose some specialization courses within the graduate certificate, either a further focus on partnerships, a focus on pedagogy, or a focus on urban policy. And this certificate is eligible to be applied to the individualized interdisciplinary studies option.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. I'm going to take a moment for the programs that we reviewed so far. So that is the Master of Science in Educational Studies, both the independent schools option, and the second, the Master's in Individualized Interdisciplinary Studies with the 1 certificate or 2 certificate pathway, or the Grad Cert in Urban Education. The admissions application requirements I have kind of listed here for you to take a look at. At a minimum, all applicants will be required to have the equivalent of a 4-year earned bachelor's degree. We do look for a 3.0 or better cumulative GPA average, both in your undergraduate, if you happen to have any master's level coursework along the way. Our application is fairly simple. Most of it is done through the interface of our online application portal. We do require an online form of which you are asked to upload your resume, what we call a personal statement or essay with an essay prompt, and you can upload those in the application form itself. 2 letters of recommendation. So those would be 2 individuals, whether it be an academic reference or professional reference that is able to speak to your ability to research, write, and to perform academically on the graduate level. You may select your recommenders, and once you've had a conversation with them, you can enter their names and professional email addresses into our application form online, and they will be sent a request from Johns Hopkins School of Education to complete and upload a letter of recommendation for you. Outside of that process, we do require that you submit all official transcripts from all the institutions that you've attended, whether you've, and that's post-secondary institutions, whether you've earned a degree or not. So that includes if you've taken, even if they appear on your degree granting transcript, we do request originals to be sent to our office, which you can request once you submit your application form. I also like to note that for these programs, there is no GRE admissions test required. For anyone who is an international applicant or internationally educated, we do have extra requirements. We do have our English language proficiency requirement, which requires submitting either an IELTS or TOEFL score, or if you happen to have attended college in the United States or any of our list of schools on our webpage where your instruction was English, you can request to have a waiver request form. In addition to that, for folks that have earned their degrees outside the United States and Canada, we do require you to get an external international credential evaluation, and that's a course-by-course evaluation of your degree, and it's transferred into US semester credits. And we do have approved agencies on our website that we can direct you to if that situation is applicable to you. In terms of our tuition and fees, many of the, all three of the programs do have options. Most of them are defined as traditional face-to-face or in-person lecture courses, but there are opportunities particularly through our certificate pathways, to take online courses. So you can see that we have a differentiated rate between in-person traditional lecture courses and online courses for you to be aware of. So you can see the cost per course. We do have a registration fee each semester of $175, and there is an $80 application one-time fee applied. So you can just kind of get a sense of what costs are for those programs. And now I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Rice, who will talk a little bit about our Urban Teachers Partnership, of which we offer a Master of Science in Educational Studies in either elementary or secondary. So Dr. Rice, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks. So we have been partnering with a group called Urban Teachers since 2016. And Urban Teachers is a nonprofit organization who provides parts of the program. They provide the clinical placement and the clinical coaching in the program, and we provide the master's degree. So Urban Teachers is a clinically based residency and coaching model that guides students into full-time teaching positions. And we are located in 3 different cities. We work with Baltimore Public Schools. In Dallas, we work with the Dallas Independent School District and the Uplift Charter Organization. And in Washington, D.C., we work both with the Washington, D.C. Public Schools and with a variety of charter operators in DC. And so the Urban Teachers program as a whole is a 4-year program. The Masters of Science in Educational Studies that is a part of the program is only a 2-year program. So it's the first 2 years of the program, the first year of which you'd be in your residency with one of the partner school districts. The second year of the Masters is your first year as a full-time teacher. Then you graduate with your master's at the end of that second year. In the third year of the program, you continue to receive coaching from the Urban Teachers organization. And at the end of that year, you do receive your initial teacher certification. It's a dual certification in either elementary education, secondary ELA, or secondary math, together with special education. So it's a 2-year degree, but a 4-year partnership program. And you do need to, if you're interested in this program at Johns Hopkins, you do need to apply to and be accepted by Urban Teachers prior to your application to Johns Hopkins. Some of the highlights of this program is that when we talk about it's a clinically based teaching model. So Urban Teachers programs prepares teachers through there's a lot of enactment and demonstration and modeling of lesson techniques and pedagogical techniques. And so you actually practice that in your courses. So that's been an interesting transition to remote education this year. But it is there is a great deal of clinical practice both in the coursework and then as well as in the 14-month residency. So that 14 months is the program only starts in the summer. So that's the 2 months of the summer that precede the first full year of the program. So that would be like June of one year through July of the following year. And then generally you start as a full year teacher or full-time teacher in August of your second year in the program. So that is a part of integrated into the 2-year Master of Science degree. And as I said before, you get dual certification in your content area, elementary, secondary literacy, or secondary math, and in special education. So the coursework is all clinically based. And in addition to the clinical coursework over it's 40 to 42 credits, depending on the area of certification. You also receive about 100 hours of one-on-one coaching. So that is through the first 3 years of the program, your residency and your first 2 years in the classroom. It's I think a great combination of a master's degree from a top-ranked university, but with this real practical-based coursework and hands-on experience. As the kind of the co-teacher, there's a gradual release of responsibility in that first residency year, where you're in the first few weeks you might be watching your host teacher much more than you're actually practicing, but you slowly take over additional responsibilities and ultimately do a kind of 5-week teaching on your own towards the end of the year. It does lead to that dual certification. And there is a specialized tuition rate that's all inclusive of all of the fees and everything else. So that's based on our relationship and our MOU with Urban Teachers Organization. That is currently $40,000 for the 2 years, although that may go up next year. It's been frozen for the past couple of years, and there's a possibility of a tuition increase next year. So as I mentioned before, to apply to this program, you must first be accepted by the Urban Teachers Organization, and we have a link here to their website, urbanteachers.org. And it requires we only take students who start in the summer. We begin with the Summer Institute. Once you're accepted by Urban Teachers, it's a slightly truncated version of our application process because we already have some of the materials from your Urban Teachers application. So we just need you to fill out our online application form and then provide official copies of transcripts from all post-secondary institutions. But your letters of reference and your essay and things like that would have already been included in your application to Urban Teachers. And we start taking applications very early. We opened up the application a couple of months ago. And then there are multiple deadline rounds. So, essentially the way this works is if you have all your materials in by December 4th, it's usually then 2 weeks later, we'll have a response to you. So for each of these dates, it's, you can apply at any time, but for each of these dates, if you get your application in, we try not to make you wait too long before you get an answer for us. Or from us, excuse me.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. I would like to circle back at this point to talk about financial aid and scholarships for all of the programs presented today, both the Masters in Educational Studies, interdisciplinary, independent schools, and for Urban Teachers. For financial aid, was 82% of our degree-seeking students, of those 2,400 students that I mentioned earlier, do borrow some type of aid through the federal financial aid system. And on the graduate level, that is primarily loan-based. It's all loan-based, actually. We only require completion of the free application for federal student aid, also known as FAFSA, each year that you're planned to enroll. applicants are encouraged to complete the FAFSA at the same time they complete the admissions application. Oftentimes, one of the most frequently asked questions we get in admissions is, I haven't been accepted yet, so I'm not going to fill out my financial aid form. Completing that FAFSA form does not obligate you to anything until you actually enroll, but does put you in line to have completed a significant piece of that paperwork in advance so that you're ready to begin that process. And then aid is not usually fed until you're enrolled and dispersed at the first week of the semester. But it is, you can list however many schools you're applying to on that FAFSA form, but we do recommend that you do that in or around the same time that you are completing and submitting your application for admission. For scholarships, we have one primary scholarship. It's the School of Education's endowed scholarships. So there's a limited number of partial need-based. We do require that you complete the FAFSA form I just spoke of to be considered each year. The application period, usually it'll open in December 1, and then you have until April 1st to submit your scholarship application form, just a short form, and your FAFSA. Urban teachers, because of our specialized partnership and discounted tuition rate, are not included with endowed scholarship recipients because they have their own. And lastly, one kind of increasing trend that I'm noticing a lot of incoming students come in with that I always like to mention is on our scholarships and financial aid web pages, we've built a significant library of external scholarships for students. Scholarships.com, Teacher.org, AAUW. These are private scholarships that you can apply to throughout the year. And they're all partial scholarships, but we've had some students fund a significant amount of their tuition by kind of proactively planning ahead and applying to some of these as part of their kind of onboarding and application process. So I wanted to share that, and that information is available on our financial aids grants and scholarships page. Okay. And now we move to the question and answer segment of today's session. So I'd invite you to, and I understand we have a small group, so we could probably even, if you'd like to turn your camera on and talk to, ask Dr. Rice or Tyreen or myself a question, we welcome you to do so. If you're more comfortable using the chat feature, we can answer your questions and read them aloud. So I'll give you a second to do that. But Dr. Rice, I do have a question from someone who could not make it today, a candidate that I was hoping maybe you could speak to the group. Is there an opportunity to do or to complete a master's thesis as part of the Master of Science in Educational Studies interdisciplinary program? I know that there's a culminating course, but would you describe a little bit about your experience working with students and the types of research that they're able to do in that program?
Sure. Yeah, we don't require a traditional thesis. The capstone course is structured more, in a way you could think of it as the plan for a thesis. It requires you to define an educational problem, do a review of the literature, do a bit of a stakeholder analysis, and ultimately come up with an action plan that is, you're not necessarily required to implement as part of the course. But the hope is that it's very practical in that sense, that you're putting together a plan that you would like to then go forward and implement. We have had students who have used what's called the graduate project in interdisciplinary studies to extend that and to actually write something like a thesis. So it is an option that we can make available, but it's more as an independent study and an extension of the capstone requirement than replacing the capstone. Some students have written, for their capstone project, have written something that looks substantially like a thesis as well, particularly if they've had an opportunity to go ahead and implement, gather some data on how whatever it is that their interest is, on how things are going. So we have had students either through just doing some, going a little bit beyond what the requirements in the capstone are, or through using a graduate project in interdisciplinary studies, do essentially a thesis.
I did have another question earlier today from a urban teachers candidate, which I think I knew the answer to, but I thought for the benefit of the group, we do have a question coming in. Let's see. Can students enroll in the Master's in Interdisciplinary Studies program full-time as a full-time student? So for full-time graduate level, that's 9 plus credits per semester. So 3 or more courses. Dr. Race, do you want to talk a little bit
Yep.
about the customized scheduling for that?
Yeah. So this is we have we have programs that are designated as full-time, and this is not designated as a full-time program. But depending on the specific mix of graduate certificates that you might choose to use towards the master's, we've had students enroll in even 4 or 5 courses a semester. So where the only reason I hesitate to just give a clear yes to this is that sometimes there might be a course that you need that is not going to be offered for another semester, and so I can't necessarily guarantee you full-time enrollment through the entire program. But if you choose the right certificates, then I'm available to just shoot me an email at ericrice@jhu.edu if you want to talk set up a time to talk in more detail. But depending on the specific graduate certificates that you choose, generally being a enrolling in 9 credits a semester is not a problem.
It looks like, Irene, did you want to read our second question for us?
Is it in the chat box? I don't.
Oh, no, I see a comment. That's
Yes.
from Sarah. Thank you. That was very helpful. But while we're on the subject of interdisciplinary studies, Dr. Rice, can you talk a little bit about one of the frequently asked questions we do receive is students asking about preparing their application and the importance of kind of hitting the right targets on their personal statement and what you're looking for, particularly for folks that are interested in doing the 2 certificate pathway. What do you look for in terms of kind of integrating in that personal statement when you're preparing an application?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I'm generally looking for is the why. So what is it about the particular combination of certificates that you're choosing that's going to help you meet whatever your personal and professional goals are. So generally, it's just explaining how the particular combination of certificates and the coursework that's included there is going to contribute to your own intellectual, personal, and professional growth is, I think, the biggest target. It is certainly helpful to talk about any experiences that you have that you think prepare you for graduate school. But I think the main thing that I'm generally looking for is a sense of some kind of passion on your part for what it is, why you want to do this, and how it's going to fit into your long-term plans for your own growth.
And for a candidate that is not decided, but may want to start with a graduate certificate program, can you start by applying first to a graduate certificate and potentially adding either a second or going the 1 cert pathway and applying to the master's degree at a later term?
Yes, absolutely. And it's fairly common that a student might have a particular interest in mind-brain and teaching and has been to a conference and met some of the faculty from that program, is interested and knows they want to do that graduate certificate program, gets a few courses in, likes what's going on, and decides, I think I'd like to combine that with urban education, or I think I'd like to take the core courses and a few electives and turn that into a master's. So yes, that is possible and fairly common.
And lastly, can the MS in interdisciplinary studies and a combination of either the 1 certificate or 2 certificate pathway be completed with entirely online coursework?
So that depends on the particular combination of certificates. So if a student chooses a certificate or 2 certificates that are fully online, then the answer is yes. Obviously, if one of the graduate certificates, the urban education certificate, for example, right now is only face-to-face, although I am developing courses in that taking advantage of this time where everything's remote to develop some of those courses in an online format and hope to offer the certificate online in the future. But as long as the certificates that you've chosen are fully online, then the whole degree can be done online. It does mean that in the core courses, we sometimes have to do a little bit of substitution. So for example, the course Advanced Instructional Strategies that we would normally require is we will substitute a different methods or instruction course for that particular course. But the capstone course is offered online every summer, and so as long as the certificates you choose are available online, there is a slightly smaller selection of electives available, because obviously you're only choosing the courses that we have available online. But there are pathways that we can, as long as the certificates are online, that we can make available to do the entire degree online.
Okay, I think that is all the questions that we have, unless anyone else would like to post one in the chat or.
There's another question. The question is, will the student earn the certificate as well as the master's, for example, to include on a resume?
Yes, if you do, for example, the example I mentioned a minute ago, mind, bread, and teaching and urban education, you would ultimately receive the Master's of Science in Education and the 2 graduate certificates. So they could be included on your resume, and in fact could be framed and put on your wall.
Excellent, thank you. We'll call out for one last round of questions before we conclude. Dr. Rice, thank you for sharing your email in the chat. I did want to, Tyrene's smiling face here. If you'd like to connect with Tyrene for an individual consultation after today's event, you're welcome to do so. Here's her email details. And also a reminder that we are still accepting applications for our spring 2021 term. I believe the absolute drop dead deadline to complete an application for it to be reviewed will be between January 21st and 22nd. And we'll be happy to walk you through any additional questions you may have or needs through either a one-on-one appointment, email, phone. We're here certainly to help you along the way if you have questions. I do want to point out for interdisciplinary studies, since that seems to be the most popular for today's session, that some of our graduate certificates are fall only start, some of them are all term start. So we'd be happy to help you with any aspects of what order you want to apply in and how you would be starting your program. And I know that once if offered admission, Dr. Rice and our academic program coordinator for this area certainly work on a customized course plan for you as you move through your program. Dr. Rice, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it. Don't hesitate to reach out if I can help talk through options.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today. We look forward to receiving your application.